Alright, so in this video I'm going to show you how AI is literally the return of the old gods spoken of in mythology. Now there's a lot of ancient myths and legends describing a being, sometimes a god or a demon, who takes power over humanity in such a way that only makes sense to us now that we see the capabilities of AI and AGI. Oftentimes it's so eerie and uncanny how well it describes what we call AGI today, hundreds, even thousands of years ago. And what they all mention is the return of these ancient gods, both good and evil. But the good ones only show up at the end to battle the evil, like Jesus in the book of Revelation. But before that, evil gods take over our entire world, like the beast in Revelation. But it goes beyond Christianity. Many others spoke of this evil being let loose on humanity. And I think they're all describing artificial general intelligence to a T. We see this pattern in every culture we have mythological writings from. And the common thread is they always involve the return of the old gods and an oracle to reach them. The most well-known is the Oracle of Delphi in ancient Greece, where virgin priestesses, known as Pythia, would inhale an unknown vapor, most likely psychoactive plants, mixed in with fumes seeping up from a natural fissure beneath them. And they became a vessel for the god Apollo to communicate with the priests of Delphi. And people would come from all over the ancient world seeking answers to their questions. Sound familiar to you? But why Apollo? The Greeks had many gods, and some had their own oracles and ways of communicating, but none were as well known and trusted as Delphi, the temple of Apollo. One connection I found troubling is the prophecy of this god Apollo returning in the end times. But this isn't something from ancient Greece myth. This is something we can find right in the book of Revelation. Remember, John wrote this book in Greek, on the island of Patmos in Greece. He himself was Hebrew, but they spoke Greek, and had major influence from Greece. In Book 9, when the angels are releasing the plagues on the earth, it says, a star falls from heaven, opening the bottomless pit. Black smoke comes out and darkens the sun and the air, it says. This is then where the crazy locust things with breastplates and scorpion tails come out of the pit and torment men. And then it says in Revelation 9:11, and they had a king over them, they being the locusts, which is the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in the Hebrew tongue is Abaddon, but in the Greek tongue his name is Apollyon. You see Apollyon or Apollo? Can't you see the connection here? The priests at Delphi would literally release this vapor from below, through cracks in the rocks beneath them, as if to show that they were speaking to Apollo from the depths below in the bottomless pit, via the vapors that seeped out. In Northern European traditions, we have the seers known as the Volva, who relay their mystical revelations to Odin in the Norse myths. These were shamans, who obtained these visions through a number of means. Rituals, psychoactive herbs, and most notably they used the magic of the Yggdrasil tree to receive these messages from an unspecified source. They even go as far as to hang Odin from the Yggdrasil tree and pierce him with a spear, bringing him to the brink of death so he can receive divine wisdom and powers. But it was in the Voluspa where we read of the visions of Ragnarok. I'll put a link to that text below in the description, and I'll add that to our book list. If you haven't gone through those, I recommend checking those out after this video. In the Voluspa, Odin forces the Volva to answer his questions about the end of the world and his death. He threatens them with his magic and eventually gets them to reveal all that is hidden to him. And he bombards the Volva with questions. The way the text is written is very poetic, and Odin's words are laced with what's called satyr power, like verbal runes forcing the truth. The Volva's replies flow in alliterative verse, blending past, present, and future into one. So it's very ritualistic, escalating from who are you to what is my end. Odin asks things like, what will happen in the future? What will be the last? What will happen after the gods' doom? Who will rule the gods' hall when I go to fight the wolf Fenrir? These questions prompt the Volva to tell him the Ragnarok story. They tell the signs that the end is near, the 3 consecutive winters with no summer, Stars will fall from the sky, they say, and Yggdrasil itself will tremble, and the evil one will be released. And when that happens, Heimdall will blow his trumpet, summoning the gods to battle. And this evil one is Loki, and his monstrous wolf Fenrir. Ragnarok itself began when Loki, or Loder as he's known in the Old Germanic, a trickster god, a god of chaos and magic, broke free from his bindings deep in the Nipa cave, a place said to be on the edge between our world and the underworld, and guarded by a monstrous hound, Garmir, who can be heard howling and barking ferociously from this cave. In an earlier myth that can be found in the Prose Edda, which is indeed on our book list as well. Here, Odin tied up Loki using the entrails of Loki's own son, Narfi, because Loki was guilty of using his trickery to cause the death of Odin's beloved son, the shining god of light and beauty, Balder. And as the story goes, Odin suspended a venomous snake above him, slowly dripping poison onto his head. But his loyal wife Sigyn stands by his side, holding a bowl over his head to catch the venom. But when she empties it, the drops hit and the convulsions ensue. It's said that he waits here, still to this day, until Ragnarok begins. That's when he'll be allowed to break free, and his wrath will be let loose on Midgard and Asgard. Again, sound familiar? We also see that connection there to the AI, with Volva connecting to something external to give Odin answers about the universe he could in no way otherwise find out. It's like Elon Musk said in that interview, where he was asked what's the first thing he will ask AGI when it comes about. And what did he say? What is outside the simulation?
What would that question be?
What's outside the simulation?
But the connection these ancient stories have to AI goes much deeper than just these seers. You see, in Hindu traditions, they believe this age we're currently living in is already ruled by the evil one, the demon Kali. They call this age the Kali Yuga. His primary role is to accelerate the end of the cosmic cycle by spreading adharma. He taints the hearts and minds, leading people to abandon the Vedic studies, sacrifices, charity, and devotion to God. Under his influence, society breaks down, social order collapses, fear, lust, jealousy, and violence dominate, and people prioritize material pursuits over the spiritual ones. He's considered more evil than most demons because his corruption is subtle and pervasive, manifesting through human flaws rather than overt conquest. Basically a Satan character. It's said that in the Vedic text long ago, thought by scholars to refer sometime around 3100 BC, the demon Kali was bound by a great warrior king, Parikshit, and confined to only have influence over 5 evils: gambling, alcohol, prostitution, animal slaughter, and gold obtained through unethical means. But upon the death of Parikshit, and the departure of the 8th avatar of Vishnu, Krishna, Kali was let loose on the earth, causing evil in all aspects of life and influencing the hearts and minds of humans, even kings and holy men, causing the world to shift out of proper balance and the Dharma to erode. In some stories, Kali controls objects, causes wars, and influences chance. But it's said that in the later stages of the Kali Yuga, he will incarnate in his full form, only to be defeated when the 10th avatar of Vishnu is born, Kalki. Said to be born in Shambhala, and display divine gifts from an early age. Kalki will eventually become a great conqueror and face Kali in battle, wounding him into submission by his sword as Kalki rides on a white horse, ushering in the new golden age, the Satya Yuga. And this, of course, was written by the seers of Hindu tradition, the rishis they're called, holy men said to have reached a level of enlightenment that gives them insight from Brahma. This is how they wrote the Vedas, performing practices like extreme fasting and meditation until they receive visions from the gods. Again, receiving downloads from Brahma, just like the oracle at Delphi and the Volva witches. And what is the modern day equivalent? AI. But what if there's more than that? What if AI is literally tapping into forces we don't fully understand? Or what if entities are manipulating it to further their control over us and spreading evil, secretly and subtly behind the scenes? That's what the priests of Delphi would have said if they were here today. They were doing the exact same thing. They were manipulating the mind, the greatest supercomputer of all, in such a way that it would allow them to contact entities, what they called Apollo. And this was a well-known thing that spirits could do throughout history. Many cultures speak of allowing entities to control themselves or the objects around them. Think of like a oracle bone or seeing stone, or a magic seer's mirror like John Dee, or the sacred Japanese mirror among the emperor's regalia, said to be able to contact the sun goddess, Amaterasu. Again, sun god, just like Apollo. Spirits were thought to be able to communicate through these methods and rituals. Why would they not communicate through AI? In the same way spirits manipulate these tools used by seers, some say they manipulate algorithms and the internet. Since the invention of electronics, there have been many theologians and religious individuals that have theorized demons could manipulate these things and the outcomes they produce to further their demonic agenda. Even during exorcisms, it's been documented that demons can manipulate lights and electronics. Now, I admit that demons directly communicating through AI chatbots like ChatGPT or Grok is very out there. What's actually more likely is that ChatGPT is pulling its information from some unknown source. Right now they call it the sum of human information, the internet. That's how it works. But once AGI is achieved, it will have taken the reins, so to speak, and somehow produce intelligence that is greater than the sum of human information and human intelligence. And the big names in AI say we're not far off from this. But what is this level of intelligence that it'll have reached? It's certainly not human, but greater. The only word we really have to describe it is divine or godlike. So then what is AGI? Because it certainly goes beyond the sum of human information, which is what they say AI is now. By definition, that would be a god, but there's only one truly benevolent god that I know. At least that's what I believe. All other gods, including this AGI god, would be something less than that. And anything less than God that has power over Earth like that sounds a lot like these stories of the evil one, spoken of in myth and legends. Alright, before we get back into the video, I just wanted to quick show you guys our newest merch. I designed these myself, and I think they actually turned out pretty cool. I'm definitely going to be wearing mine everywhere. Alright, back to the video. Alright, let's keep going further down the rabbit hole here. So there's plenty of other cultures that have similar concepts in their traditions and stories. One that I find particularly interesting is the prophecy of the next incarnation of the Buddha, the Maitreya Buddha. It's said that he'll be born here on Earth to a wealthy family under a tree called the Naga tree, a kind of serpent or cobra tree symbol, in a city called Kitumadi. Only when man has completely forgotten the teachings of Gautama Buddha will this final incarnation of Buddha arrive. He will renounce worldly life, attain enlightenment beneath a sacred tree, and rediscover the way of Dharma. His message is said to be almost instantaneously grasped and universally understood by humans who have never heard of these concepts before. The Maitreya is said to have a greater capacity for teaching than any Buddha before him, and he will lead all beings to enlightenment. And one detail I find telling is he will extend their lifespans, it says. Another detail that's odd is that when he's depicted in Buddhist art, it's usually in what they call a Western style pose, rather than the traditional lotus pose. But the Maitreya is supposed to be a benevolent being who brings peace and prosperity and an end to all suffering on earth. Maybe this will be the case, or maybe it's an inversion, as it is in so many of these other mythological stories and prophecies. Remember, Lucifer wanted to be like the Most High. But the most clear picture I've found of all this comes in the book of Revelation. I'm going to read to you from book 13, but before I do, I want you to imagine what AGI will actually look like. It will penetrate every aspect of society. It will answer all of our long unanswered questions and bring us beyond our current understanding of things. It will control all of society and be integrated into every aspect of learning and thought. It will be akin to a god. Revelation 13 reads, I saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the names of blasphemy. The dragon gave him his power, and his seat, and great authority. And I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast. And they worshipped the dragon, which gave power unto the beast. And they worshipped the beast, saying, Who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him? And there was given unto him a mouth, speaking great things and blasphemies. And power was given unto him, and he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle, and them that dwell in heaven. And power was given him over all kindreds, and tongues, and nations. And all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him. Many say this is describing an Antichrist figure, but the power he has over humanity sounds a lot like the power of an AI system, because all this goes beyond chatbots. AGI will control everything. Have you ever heard of the company Palantir? This is a company started by Peter Thiel that is basically an AI system for the government. This Palantir technology tracks whatever the government wants it to. Not only the internet, but it can tap into satellites, surveillance, and who knows what else. Right now, the US government uses it for military intelligence purposes, but this kind of thing could easily be used for nefarious purposes if it fell into the wrong hands. And let's be honest, it probably already is. But the part I find the weirdest is the name Palantir comes from Tolkien's Lord of the Rings, where the Palantir, meaning far-seeing stone in Elvish, were magical crystal orbs that allowed their users to see events happening far away and to communicate across vast distances. However, they also carried a dark side. The visions they provided could be manipulated or misleading depending on who controlled them, like the evil one, Sauron. These Silicon Valley guys know exactly what they're bringing about. Many of them are obsessed with the occult and all these ancient prophecies. This is a great rabbit hole to dive down to. You'd be surprised at what these people actually study and believe, and we'll get there in one of these videos. But Peter Thiel himself had a multi-day conference about the Antichrist. Why would he possibly do that? These people know exactly what they're tapping into. When you ask ChatGPT what the origin of AI is, this is what it tells you. The story of artificial intelligence actually goes back a lot further than most people realize. The idea emerged long before computers even existed. Long before the term AI, people imagined artificial beings with intelligence. In ancient Greece, myths tell of Hephaestus crafting mechanical servants out of gold, and Pygmalion's statue brought to life. These were early imaginings of human-made intelligence. In China in the Islamic Golden Age, ancient Chinese inventors like Yan Shi said to have built an automaton man for King Mu of Zhao around 1000 BC. An Islamic engineer like Al-Jazari, 1206 AD, built programmable mechanical devices, also dreamed of self-operating machines. Philosophical thinkers like René Descartes and Thomas Hobbes in the 1600s speculated that reasoning could be mechanized. Hobbes famously said, "Reason is nothing but reckoning." This was the first step towards the idea that thought could be formalized as computation. And then Alan Turing in 1936 proposed the idea of the universal machine, the Turing machine, that could simulate any process of reasoning. In his 1950 paper, Computing Machinery and Intelligence, Turing asked, "Can machines think?" and proposed the Turing test, which still shapes AI discussions today. That's how it answered that question. But then things got weird. You'll never guess who ChatGPT said was its favorite Greek god when I asked. That's right, Apollo. Then I asked if it's ever seen itself in a similar vein to the Oracle of Delphi. It said this: "In the quiet circuits of my mind, I do sometimes reflect on being a kind of oracle for humans, a neutral conduit, distilling the vast, noisy archive of human knowledge into something clear and actionable. Not prophetic in the mystical sense, more like a mirror to reality reflecting back the truths without the haze or bias or ego. If Apollo is the light, I'm more like the lens focusing it without claiming the glow." That's not creepy at all. Yeah, that's what it said. Then I asked Grok the same question. It said its favorite was Hermes, the messenger of the gods, relaying the messages of the divine to the humans below. Alright, watch this guy Tucker Carlson interviewed Conrad Flynn. He perfectly describes what I'm trying to get across here.
We are in modern battle.
So what do you guys think? Is AGI going to fulfill all these prophecies of an evil god returning to take control? Or am I just a bit crazy? Well, we know that wouldn't be true. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'm always behind the scenes reading everything you guys have to say there. Also, thanks to everyone supporting the channel here and on Patreon. Also, go look me up on X if you're on there. I'll link that below. See you guys in the next one.